Okay. For the record again, Elmer Bull, Chief of Habitat. I think Commissioner Drew might have summed things up pretty well this morning when we were standing outside waiting to come into the building, and he says it's not going to be a very good day when you wake up and your car is covered with ashes. And given the amount of smoke that was in here today, it's pretty evident that there's some bad things going on out there. I passed out a little packet of information for those out in the audience. There's some maps and a table back there that our staff put together yesterday afternoon. To start off with the table, keep in mind, or it's not noted on here, but this represents only the fires that are greater than 1,000 acres in size, and these are the 2012 fires in excess of 1,000 acres. Not to say that the others aren't important, and we certainly monitor what's going on with other smaller fires, but for the purposes of discussion today and presentation, I thought we would stick with things that are over 1,000 acres. On this, of course, there's a ton of information on here talking about the name of the fire, acreage, vegetation going, and over to into the far right column, talking about key wildlife species that are being impacted by those specific fires. As you can see down at the bottom, and of course this number is probably not as accurate today as it was yesterday. In fact, that's a certainty, but a total of 414,688 acres composed of those fires greater than 1,000 acres. Those highlighted in that lavender color are the ones that, as of yesterday, were still not contained. As you can see, different ones are in various stages of containment, but unfortunately, there's a lot of small numbers there referring to containment. A few of these are of particular concern. Like I said, they're all important, but some of these are really, really tough. In order to maybe capture the essence of that, I attached a couple of maps on there too. One of them is mostly a beige colored map, and this is just intended to provide a general location of where these maps are in the state, and they pretty much correspond to the list of the names on the left side of that table. The other map, and the one that's more telling as far as the significance of some of these fires, is the one that shows a lot of yellow, blue, green, and so forth on it. What that represents is the locations of the fires and overlaid over the top of the habitat categorization map that was developed. That is specific to sage grouse habitat, and as you can see down in the legend on the lower left-hand side, the value of that habitat going from bright yellow on down to different colors. And unfortunately, you're seeing some of those large fires are right in the middle of some of the big yellow part of the map there, indicating that those fires are having a significant impact on sage grouse habitat, and that's something that we're going to end up having to live with and work very, very hard to try to recover those areas, but it's going to be very tough. You look at, for example, the Holloway fire over on the chart. It's listed at 160,000 acres. Keep in mind that was yesterday afternoon at about 4 o'clock. Doug Martin had a map up, or an image up on his computer here a little bit ago, and it's showing that fire continuing to build, so that number there is probably somewhat lower than what the actual size of the fire is now. That one is burning on in Nevada as well as in Oregon, probably about a 50-50 split there, but a very significant fire, as you can see, that's burning in all categories of sage grouse habitat all the way through 1 through 5. But generally, you can see where it's plotted there. It's right in the middle of some very prime habitat.
And in fact, the Holloway fire is burning the Montanas, which is probably the most significant.
It's in the Montanas, it's in the Belt Creek Mountains, and it's in the Trout Creek Mountains in Oregon, possibly even affecting Lahontan cutthroat trout habitat in some of those areas up there. So very bad fire. Another one that started up last Sunday, I think maybe we ought to refer to August 5th of 2012 as Black Sunday, because that's when a lot of this stuff started. The Lost Fire over in Washoe County, northern Washoe County, we listed it at 65,000 acres yesterday. I know it was continuing to move eastward. As of the latest report that I got late yesterday, it had not made it into High Rock Canyon, which is really good news, but nonetheless, it's burning in some very significant sage-grouse habitat. So, looking at, again, at the totals on this chart, 414,000 acres yesterday of these fires. About 320,000 of that has occurred since Sunday. So we were doing very, very well until last Sunday, and then the bottom fell out of things. So we're, looking at a pretty tough fire season already. We're, going to, we continue to be involved, our agency, with the land management agencies. We are in constant contact with them, providing information about wildlife values in these areas. I know Commissioner Rain mentioned this morning that it was his impression that a lot of times the fire crews are not necessarily aware of the quality of the wildlife habitat, maybe, but I've heard some stories where the BLM, has maps hanging, and they've, their people are looking at that. It may not be, a statewide situation, but I know they are paying attention to that and focusing their efforts on some of this critical habitat. If they have an opportunity to focus on one area over here that's critical sage-grouse habitat versus something over here, I know this is how they're trying to direct their resources and their strategies. So,
I called Raul Morales because I heard the Lost Fire had gotten into High Rock, and the complaint was, the situation is that we've got the Surprise Valley BLM district, which is administered out of California, and you have the Battle Mountain district, which is in Nevada, and then you have the Forest Service. So you get a lot of bureaucratic, that kind of stuff. And we heard that we made available $500,000 of Ruby pipeline money to have 5 additional tankers on top of the 5 that they had stationed here. And I heard that they were not in the air. So I called Raul and I said, what gives? Okay, we paid this money, get the resources on the ground. He got back at the end of the day and said that they had been deployed, they had a helicopter or other resources, and that played a large part in arresting the Lost Fire, which is, good news. But we shouldn't have to always be there pushing that. But I can tell you, Chris Hampson had the phone ring out of his ear, calling the Surprise Valley, screaming at them, and then Battle Mountain, not screaming at him. He's got a good working relationship, but, really pushing hard on that. The word I got on Black Sunday, there was 85 new fire starts from 13,000 lightning strikes one day.
that was just in the Elko district.
That was just in the Elko district. So it doesn't take long to outstrip your ability to do anything when you have that many fires going. What I wanted to say, and then so you guys then can discuss it, I got a call from staff, and we're seriously considering sage-grouse closure, hunting closures for this season. As an example, in Montana, Sean's just sick. He's taken personal time. He's been up there watching what's going on, and a significant amount of the mountain is gone. And the concern is when you have one of the best sage-grouse areas in the state and lots of hunters, that they'll get forced into a smaller amount of habitat. So we have some time here, and I told them to just do our due diligence. There's going to be more fires. We don't want to run to this commission and have a closure and then 2 weeks later get something else. So the plan is, I would like you guys to look at your calendars for September 14th to hold a telephonic emergency meeting of the commission to consider closures. I know we're going to have some proposals for closures, the Montana's being one. And that we have to, 10 days prior to that, notice that. So we would notice it on the 4th of September to hold a telephonic meeting on the 14th. If you tell me that you can't do it on the 14th, And I'll tell you why the 14th or the 17th. That would be a Friday or a Monday. And the thought is that we give the hunters 2 weeks' notice. I mean, I hate to spring it on them a week before, but a couple weeks, I think if we blast it out, we'll get a news release out at this meeting that we talked about it. Hunters need to know that this is a bad fire season, and we're going to be considering proposing to the commission sage grouse closures, and it'll be by unit. Just to know that that's coming. Based on the information I've got from staff already, we are going to be proposing something. We just need to find the right time. This was too quick. I think that we have more country that's going to get burned, obviously, and that I want the guys to take the time and really evaluate how much was burned and what effect that might have on the birds and their well-being's number one, obviously, and if we have to adjust the seasons and areas, so be it.
And you'll make that agenda item, or that agenda, fairly generic, so if there's stuff occurring while we're waiting for that agenda to clear, we'll be able to address it at that point. And then, just so everybody's aware, we've been in this situation before with fire events. If we can't get a commission meeting put together, in emergency situations, Ken does have authority to start doing stuff.
Yes.
It's advisable to check in with the governor's office before we do that.
It is. There's a little bit of history on that, isn't there?
Commissioner Rain?
A couple things. I was looking down this list, and it just happens that there's a couple fires here that spent a little bit of time on, and there's a couple errors, and I wonder if out of 33 fires, I've been there 2, and 2 of them are errors. You might want to look at some of the rest. For example, the Pinot fire, lists that as bighorn habitat. Unit 144, bighorn sheep habitat? Don't think so. And you might want to tell their biologist there's bighorn sheep where he doesn't know they are. There's been a couple elk spotted in there, but Diamond Mountains, last I checked, don't have any bighorn. There's been a couple sightings of a couple mountain goats way back, several years. Also on that particular fire, you'll also find that for the most part, when you get a little evaluation of it, I'd say the vast majority of that fire was quite positive because, like you say here, pinyon juniper, it burned a whole bunch of foothills that, for the most part, if you would have wanted to prescribe a burn around some people's houses and a ranch, which you wouldn't, this would have been a good spot for it. The lower portion of this, a little bit of upper habitat, but fairly small. The Fraser fire, which this list is 25% contained, as of yesterday had 0 smoke coming off of it. It drove up, or actually around it. Spent about 20 hours on that over a couple-day period. The majority of that was pinyon juniper, and this department, through heritage funds and other funds, spent a huge amount of money over, I believe, 3 years with the Forest Service prison crews cutting down pinyon juniper in the same area that burned over. So, and there was talk of continuing that. So, I mean, it was in some of the best area that if you could have picked an area, I'd say, they're saying 13,000 acres, probably 10,000 of those acres, if you could have picked an area to burn, about 10,000 you would have wanted burned if you saw it was there. It was pinyon juniper, massively encroached. There wasn't a blade of grass for a squirrel up in most of that. So, there are some good things there. Also, it's pronghorn up on that mountain. Maybe once it gets peeled off with a pinyon juniper, I wouldn't have called that pronghorn at all, because it gets up into the high mountains for the most part. It was stopped well below the foothills with maybe a few acres. Private land, 80 acres. Haven't been in the truck with the local county assessor. 80 acres. One old nothing cabin, so private might be I guess there was 80 acres amongst all the 13,000. But that one, vast majority would have been pinyon juniper, and you're going to look at some great habitat at some point up in there due to these. So some of this, I would say, would be very positive. The 2 I've been around.
Well,
and so just
we certainly
that
understand that some fire it can be beneficial in certain areas. And one thing to note, this information came off the BLM website, so it's not it's not something that we can talk to. But points well taken.
And I'm sure at some point when you start talking about this, you'll talk to your biologist, and they'll tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's I don't know if it's a sage grouse 1, 2, and 3 or what. Well, there's probably 1, 2, and 3 sage grouse in the 10,000 acres that are the worst of the 13 that burned. There's a few acres there that are a little bad, but, and one of these good things too about the only way that the BLM, even knew that there was any habitat up there that was in trouble is the head of the county road shop was there directing Eureka Resource on the fire, and he'd been up there on many occasions, and he knew where it was, and I knew where it was, and Mr. Gogachia was there, and he knew where it was. BLM, these guys aren't from around here. The guy in charge of the fire, he'd moved into Eureka 2 weeks before. Nobody there has ever had any maps. Many of the crews, I mean, that guy's from Idaho up in there. I mean, you know, virtually all BLM resources that came into there had to be directed as to which highway to take to get there, if that says how familiar they are with the area. So, you know, if you want people to know what habitat's there, it's going to be a tough job. It ain't near the job, but the only people that are really going to know is the local knowledge. I'd get your maps out to the volunteer fire departments, to the local BLM people, and have extra copies for the local people to hand out to the BLM as they're coming in, because the guy in charge in BLM, he was probably in Kansas last month. That's the way it works.
Well, I know we have an agreement with them that they are to try to consult with us. We can provide an awful lot of information about resources out there, and maybe that's not always happening, but it's something we can certainly
There'd be no
strive to
time
improve
for him.
on.
You know, by the time he gets to there, they got to have something in their hand, because where's my bulldozers going? I can't be talking to somebody else. You know, it's like if you have a map and a guy standing there can say, hey, this is it right here, right now. By the time they call up Endow's office, another 5,000 acres burned up.
Well,
Commissioner Drew?
I guess the point I would make, to Scott's point, and it's on twofold, for as good as some of the fires in Eureka County were, the 2 fires going in Washoe County and up here on Holloway are about as bad a place as you could pick for sage grouse and things of that nature. Some of our experience has been a little different, especially in Douglas County with the pine nuts and the bi-state population, and that the BLM crews and the multi-agency crews that have been organizing around those fires have had a really good sense of where the sage grouse habitat is. In fact, they started diverting on the first pine nut fire, they started diverting resources to protect some of the prime sage grouse habitat, kind of in deference to some of the structures that were secondary concern. So I think across the state, we're seeing some issues that need to be addressed, I think, from the BLM's managerial standpoint in terms of consistency. And this isn't the first time I've made that statement or talked to BLM about it. But where I'm going with this, and probably under 16 in terms of future commission items, I think September is going to be a very ripe time to get some inputs to the BLM state office on ways to improve that from this commission. And so, you know, I'm going to bring that up on 16, but it's something that needs to happen on a lot of different issues, but fire is going to be a prime one, because I think the prediction for this summer was 600,000 acres was their prediction to burn. I think we're past that.
We're past that
if
now.
we don't go way past double that. So,
Yeah. It's a good point. Yep. I guess if there's any, obviously there's going to be an awful lot of work to be done, and if there's any good news in this thing is that there's a considerable amount of financial resources that are available, and we're definitely going to be tapping into those as we work through this, and I think it's going to be happening fairly quickly. One of the things that was really concerning yesterday in talking to Lee Turner is that, you know, he told me that the Utah Partners for Conservation Development just spent a few $1 million buying seed. And they have some good facilities for storing seed. They're able to buy it in large quantities and store it. That's something that we're lacking a little bit. I think I met with Commissioner Drew and Pete Anderson from NDF last week, and we talked about their seed storage facility, but it's maybe not quite up to snuff with what we'd like to see in the way of the quality of, or the capability of storing seed for a long period of time. But it's obvious that that seed availability may become an issue this year with a lot of fires going on in the west. it may be very tough to find seed. So this coming week, we're going to begin that search and start talking about opportunities to acquire the kind of seed that we need. The question is where we're going to store it. Lee and I talked yesterday, and perhaps there's opportunity in dealing with the seed vendors to leave seed in their warehouse for a while. But we definitely need to begin that search for seed, because that might be the limiting factor come this fall. So we'll start working on that right away and kind of see where we stand there. As far as funding sources go, the fires, the Holloway, the Lost Fire, the Bull Run complex, which is further over to the east, that included the Lime Fire at Homer and a few others. All of those are burning in good sage-grouse habitat, burning in the area where we're allowed to use Ruby pipeline money. There's a sizable balance remaining there, so we'll definitely be looking at that financial resource there. We also have habitat conservation fee money that we have available. We still have question 1 money that was dedicated for fire rehab work. It hasn't been used a whole lot the last few years, but it's going to get hit this year. We're Dream Tag proposals for Dream Tag funding are out right now. We'll probably be putting in for some Dream Tag money for some of this kind of work too, but definitely the Ruby money will come in handy in some of these in the northern tier of counties coming across on these fires. So we're going to be beginning that process this week and start assessing where we're at. I think prior to this week, everything was kind of going along fairly slowly, but this is things have really accelerated this week, and we still have an awful lot of the summer left, so we need to begin mobilizing our resources and determining which direction we're going to go. It will happen this week.
Commissioner Drew?
The only comment that I'd have, Elmer, and I appreciate you guys looking at all the sources, and especially things like the Ruby money and getting the seed process underway, but I would hope that since the department's ponying up some of the funds for this, that we don't have to be restricted on what we put on the ground. We need to be putting the stuff that makes the most sense, especially in cheatgrass areas. Not necessarily all native mixes, but something that gives us a chance of future success.
Absolutely.
If it's our money. So I guess what I'm kind of getting at with this, and I'm not trying to soapbox you, but if you need this commission to do something in September, we need to know about it. So start making a list with you and your guys so we can start making those points to the people we need to make those points to.
Sure.
Please.
You bet. Absolutely. One thing that I would mention too, I spoke earlier about the need to probably start looking at buying seed, the lack of a place to store it. The BLM, I guess, according to Lee, has had plans in the works for quite some time now for establishment of a big seed warehouse over in Ely. And they're looking for some funding partners. I haven't really talked to Ken about this, but it's probably something that we need to look at. It could be a tremendous resource for us. We don't have a place. NDF's got that facility there in Washoe Valley, but it's kind of shaky as to just how good of a job it will do at keeping seed in there.
There's no refrigeration.
No refrigeration at all in it. The other thing that we'll be looking at very closely, I mentioned that Commissioner Drew and I met with Pete Anderson, and one of the discussion items that day was the amount of resources that NDF has available for us to use at our disposal. Apparently in years past, we used to work with them very closely on a lot of fire rehab work and use some of the resources they had, but for whatever reason, it seems like we've gotten away from that. But we're having a statewide Habitat Division meeting in September, and NDF folks are going to come up and talk to us. I had no idea that they had 3 range drills and 3 bulldozers sitting up in Elko. They have 2 of the same setups down in the western part of the state. They have people to run them. They have people to go out and do seed collection if that's something that might be practical this coming fall, particularly for big sage. So we're definitely going to be looking at opportunities to use them as a resource. The beauty of some of that is that it can be done through an interlocal agreement with them, so we don't end up going through the massive state contracting process. So we'll still be doing some of that, but we're going to look at all the opportunities we have to work with NDF on this also. So that was about all I had. I'd try to answer some questions for you. It's a really tough time. These numbers are changing as we speak, so.
Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to 14D. Thank you, Elmer.
Okay, I'll just go down the list. For Walker River, no significant developments.
Can you speak?
Can everyone hear me?
No.
Okay, I'm going down the list for the first item, the Walker River irrigation litigation. There has not been any significant developments. The last I heard, the confidential settlement discussions are ongoing. The second item, Wayne Hage, there has been significant development. On July 26th, the Federal Circuit, that's a Court of Appeals, issued a decision, and it reversed all of the award of compensation, which was over $4 million for the Wayne Hage, who is now deceased, so it was for his estate. It reversed the findings that he was entitled to any compensation for his takings claims. And does the commission want me to give kind of a brief overview of it? I know the decision came out a few weeks ago, and I was at the airport at the time, but I asked Rich to forward the link, so hopefully everyone has had a chance to read it. And so if there are any questions, I can answer that. If not, I'll just move along.
Have any questions?
It was the total win for.
Yeah, it's a complete victory, and I should mention that NDOW is involved as an amicus party, which is a friend of the court, and we filed several briefs. And when I say we, I don't mean the AG's office. It was always NDOW was always represented by the. Let me pull it up. His name is Joseph Fellers, and he is one of the professors for the University of Colorado, and he was the principal attorney, and he did a great job. He and his students did a great job preparing the brief, and I think it really helped the United States with their case.
You want to explain why we were involved?
Sure. We were involved because one of the takings claims alleged that the release of the elk on public lands reduced the amount of forage in the water that was available to Mr. Hage's cattle. And so that was the reason we got involved, and I believe the United States wanted us to get involved too. So procedurally, I haven't heard if, it's a case that has been pending for over 20 years, so even though it was a great decision and it was a victory for the United States, I'm sure there is going to be some kind of appeal. The state could ask for either a rehearing or for the United States Supreme Court to review it, but we'll see what happens. The decision is a great decision, and it doesn't leave, it's been remanded, but it doesn't leave a lot of room for the claims court to reinstate any of the compensation award. So moving on, Carson Lake and Pasture briefing is still in progress. Truckee River, same thing. Russell Elms, no activity in that case. And Brian Christie, we have a trial date set for August 23. And Cloud Foundation, that is a wild horses case. And the gather was completed last year, but the litigation is ongoing, and we'll see what happens with that. The court is probably going to review it just based on the law, and we're briefing that for the court. Number 8, the personnel matter has voluntarily been dismissed, so that'll go off of the list. And the last one, the torts claim, we are in discovery, and we held a meeting in Las Vegas last month. That's it.
Okay. Scott? On the Hage, I'm very disturbed by the comments that this is a great job and a great decision. It is a true tragedy when you look at it in light of what things this commission has come up with in the past, specifically the resolution of Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners against Department of Wildlife's intervention. It was a resolution, some of the commissioners might not be aware of that, asking the department to withdraw as amicus to the case. It was rejected by the department, and this, by doing so and continuing and helping these people, the people who are against this case, against the Hages, it clearly demonstrates that the Department of Wildlife is extremely anti-ranching. And this, of all cases, probably is the one that demonstrates that the clearest. When you take a look at what these other federal judges over the last 20-some-odd years has been repeated decisions in favor of the Hages on this case. Up till this particular appeals ruling, federal judges were in favor. It went back. The last time it went back and there was a second ruling, the judge said, well, the last judge missed $100,000 and some odd. It should be more than that. The total amount of money got in excess, with interest, in excess of $20 million. It's the $4 million something plus interest since the beginning day. This is extremely anti-ranching ruling, and it was extremely anti-ranching on the part of the commission to be a party of this, particularly in light of the fact, as was expressed in the resolution here more than a year ago, that the amicus brief was drafted on behalf of the Nevada Department of Wildlife by the National Wildlife Federation, and it was in conjunction with the Nevada Natural Resource Defense Council, those organizations, which are known to, and that last one is known to be anti-hunting, anti-trapping, anti-ranching, anti-mineral, geothermal, and oil exploration throughout the West, those being the co-amicy with the Department of Wildlife. When you're in that type of company, something is wrong, and this was wrong, and it was unfair that they did so, and there's been many, and actually there was actually a ruling recently, I believe it was on the trespass issue, and these guys, and the Hages were found to be not liable for them. I'm trying to think of how many decisions, but it's in excess of a dozen decisions have been handed down by federal courts in relation to this case, and all of them except this one were in favor of the Hages. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything?
Can I just respond briefly? I'll start with the trespass case. That's actually not correct. I've been in contact with the attorney for the United States DOJ, and he actually just emailed me last night that the trespass case is still ongoing. There's no final decision. However, the judge has indicated that he will require, I believe it's Mr. Hage's son, to apply for a permit. So your statement is incorrect that there was no trespass. And then also, this case is over 20 years. I know the commission last year entered into that resolution, which has no legal effects. It's not legally binding on the department, and we've been involved in it since 1991. It's a case that many attorneys general, many endowed directors, and many commissioners have concluded that it's a case that was good for wildlife. This decision, if you read it, does not say anything that is not supportive of ranching. The case, and I don't want to go into the whole facts because I haven't reviewed the record in a really long time, but the allegations were basically the Hage estate did not request a special use permit for his maintenance. It was not about his his grazing permits. And again, it's a decision that's good for wildlife, and that's why Endow's involved.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
Not true.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 15, Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioner Committee assignments. Informational. I'll be getting in touch with especially new Commissioner Bill Young and going over committee assignments. I'll get in contact with everybody. There will be some changes. I don't see a lot of changes. I'll work with Jeremy, and I'll take note of what you said, Scott, and when I'm reviewing the committee assignments, and take that into consideration. So, anybody have anything on committee assignments?
Do good, be fair. Have a nice day.
What's that?
Do good, be fair. Have a nice day.
I'm planning on it. Agenda item 16, future commission meetings. Secretary Ken Mayer for possible action.
Our next meeting is going to be in Vegas, the 21st and 22nd of September. I wanted to alert you guys that we try to take a leadership team trip every year. Last year, we came up to Elko and did a number of things that were very good for the region, staff interaction. This year, we're planning to leave the afternoon or the morning of the 18th. We're going to visit, we're going to drive to Ely, and look at Steptoe, Kirsch, and we're going to end up at Overton as a group, and then on into Las Vegas. So we'll be doing a couple days there. If you guys, anybody wants to join us when we get to the Overton part of it, that would certainly be great.
What day approximately?
That would be on the 20th.
20th, you know about what time?
Not yet. We haven't got the total logistics driving time, but would you think it'd be the morning?
Yeah, it'd be in the morning.
Be in the morning of the 20th. And so we could get settled, in the hotel in the afternoon of the 20th. So we've not done that, and since I've been, Elmer and I and Rich did a tour because I had not seen Kirsch and Key Pittman and all that, but we're going to take the whole leadership team and do that, so we're looking forward to that. So we'll be in Vegas.
All right. Commissioner Drew?
Yeah, just a couple items in light of kind of what we learned today. I would like to see something either Friday or Saturday as an informational item, potentially on the sage grouse, particularly if, I don't know if the governor will have had a chance to sign the report or provide recommendations at that point. But if that process happens before September, I'd like to know where that's at. I'd like to get an update on the wildfire situation, just given what's going on. And I'd also like to see a potential action item, and I'd like to keep it broad at this point, but something regarding correspondence, as broad as possible anyway. Correspondence with BLM Nevada and the leadership of the Humboldt-Toyabe on natural resource concerns or wildlife concerns, something to that effect. So if there's
You want the
things
Forest
related,
Service or the BLM?
both. And my method to my madness is, I think the HT has a huge leadership turnover that's going to occur about this time. So if there's things on wildfire that we want to address, or other public land management type issues, we could get those.
Why don't we talk?
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there as a
Yeah, I'm not
placeholder.
sure who the HT would send because Jeannie's leaving, and
Right.
we'll have an acting, and it'll be.
Right, and I don't know if we need to have people at the meeting, but I'd like to be able to have the latitude to maybe put some correspondence together to get to the new folks and to BLM in terms of if we have some priorities on wildfire rehab or things that may need to happen, or better coordination that needs to occur, given what's coming out of some of the fire stuff.
Commissioner Rain?
Basically, procedural item that was on the every previous agenda of this commission and most other commissions and boards since the world basically began, as far as agendas are placed, is the item approval of the agenda. It was stricken. I asked why it was removed, and I was told by AG basically that it's not required by law. Wonderful. Lots of things not necessarily required by law. However, approval of the agenda is a reasonable, and that's paraphrasing, of course, is a reasonable, normal thing to have, and it basically not having it on the agenda shows a lack of understanding perhaps how Robert's Rules of Order work. If you want to change something on the agenda, particularly order of items, bring things forward, of course you can't change that, you can only remove items. But if you want to change the order of things and you don't have that item on the agenda, Therefore, under the rules of this commission, it requires a 2/3 vote to change that order by changing basically the rules of the suspending the rules. So if you want to make it so that you have to have a 2/3 to do anything different on the agenda, then, leave it off. But it's only a logical thing. Call it a bipartisan, by everybody thing. Hey, have it on the agenda already. It only makes sense from a running a meeting standpoint. But thank you.
Commissioner Macbeth, did you have something?
No, I was just pointing.
Oh, okay, your point.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, because my head's not going that way too well. A couple placeholders I'd like to get on, maybe not the next agenda, but coming agendas. We have 2 items that we've been holding on. They were going to go through the TAC, and they haven't got out. And I'm looking at Mr. Sefton. He can probably help us on one, and that's, we talked about it last night. They're getting some deer tags back in, elk tags back in, and we don't have a vehicle to reissue those under the current rules. And, those are just tags waiting for somebody to go hunting. And if we have a different vehicle, and I've talked to Mr. Sefton about that, and I believe Maureen's looked at that, and Dawn's looked at something there.
Don Sefton, Systems Consultants. We proposed something a couple of months ago to the folks in licensing, and unfortunately today neither Maureen nor Bob are here, but they've taken it the next step, and they've been actually trying to put together, what some of the legal issues would be, or regulatory issues would be. And this basically would allow us to more expeditiously issue alternates, and it involved people indicating when they applied that they'd take an alternate tag so that we wouldn't have to go through the process that we have to now. That's basically 2 days per tag, trying to contact someone and then moving on to the next person. And this would allow us to do it much quicker, so it would allow more tags that are now just sitting fallow to be reissued to alternates. And I think it's getting to the point where Maureen could probably bring it forward. So.
And the reason I bring it up is because I'd like to, look at the calendar going out, and if there's a way we can get some of this stuff put in place. The other thing is, Jim Janae repeatedly asked me about a party cow elk hunt. I know that Maureen's been working on some language on that. So I'd like to see those come sooner than later. Maybe we can get them put in place this year. That's why I'm bringing it up now. If we can't get them in place this year, I'm sorry, but if we can do everything we can to get them on agendas, I think those are 2 items that none of us are really going to argue about. We just need to get them done. And I want to start getting some things done and move forward. The tag allocation committee didn't meet. It slowed us down. That's my fault, but time to get a couple things done. Anybody else have anything? That is action item, so if we have public comment on this agenda item, anybody have any public comment? Rex?
Rex Flowers, Washoe County. At the beginning of the meeting yesterday, Washoe County was asking if the commission would consider getting a questionnaire, directing the department maybe to get a questionnaire or opinion poll out on season date versus day. So if we could maybe get that forwarded to September, and if you decide at that time to vote it down and not take action, you can, or you can vote to give that direction so that within the next few months we can get some figures on how the public feels.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we move on to agenda item 17, and that's public comment. Do we have any of that? Everybody?
I guess I'm taking Paul's place this month. Rex Flowers, General Public. Again, I think it was well demonstrated today with the information on the wildfires. 50% of those have private land involved, and of that 50%, all but one has sage grouse habitat. And with the importance of getting that restored and stuff, I would hope we could look for a vehicle to get some cooperative agreements with private landowners, get some of these non-invasive or non-native plants going and get more money on the ground sooner rather than go through all the other bureaucracies with the feds. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark County Cap. I'd like to make an outreach offer to the commission and NDOW who are coming down for the Vegas meeting. That either Thursday or Friday night, I'd like to host a barbecue dinner at my house and invite you guys all over to relax. We don't have to go out. Can't say it'll be a Basque restaurant style, but it'll be good and we'll have some fun. So if you guys are interested, I'll let the chairman pulse the people and get back to me, and you can, director, and if there's a will and a want, we'll host something at my place, okay? Thank you.
Well, thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none,
Move to adjourn. Second.
we're adjourned. I apologize, everybody. The meeting lasted longer than I thought.